Welcome into the broadcast, Erin.
What's
You're
up?
not racing this year. How you doing?
I'm pumped. I'm excited. I'm a little jealous,
Yeah,
but I'll be back
yeah.
eventually.
Well, I think you are back, but you're not quite back enough. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, I just didn't want to be disappointed in
Um,
myself after last year. So
yeah. Is that a common theme? No, I'm kidding.
that could be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. So you're running well again, at least.
Yeah, my running is going well. Everything's going well. But to come back from an injury and I did 3 full distance Ironmans in 18 months, so I probably needed a break anyways. So it was time.
Yeah. Okay. Good enough. So you're not doing one this fall? You're not doing Chattanooga or something crazy?
No, I'm just gonna not race this year and see what happens in the new year and go from there.
All right. Great. So you're from Wisconsin. You've done Wisconsin many times, right? Or
Yes,
how many times have you done it?
five,
Five. Five.
five.
Impressive. Ooh. I guess I'm
Mhm.
jumping ahead of you this year.
Yeah.
That kind of burns you a little bit, I think, too.
No, no.
Um, so, and you've obviously, I mean, you ride the course a lot, you run
hmm
the course a lot, you know the course a lot. We talked the other day about the run change. You may have some insight on that as well, a
A little
little
bit.
bit. You've maybe run. I don't quite understand it. We can get into that later. But
Yeah.
first of all, let's just start from the beginning. So you're from Wisconsin. You've been there many times. You stay downtown. What do you do? How do you handle this?
This year, because I'm not racing, I'm staying at the Best Western. But I personally, when I am racing, I usually stay in an Airbnb like 10 or 15 minutes away. I've stayed there 3 times. It's perfect. It's far enough away to be away from the crowds, and kind of be able to disconnect a little bit and do your own thing, but still close enough. Easy drive in the morning. There's no traffic. Parking's not an issue. So that's how I like to do it. But I know a lot of people that are racing always stay at the Best Western or
Yeah,
somewhere downtown.
yeah, yeah. I hear you. That's not my bag, but I mean, my bag is being as close as possible, obviously. But I get it. I mean, I've stayed
Yeah,
in certain places where they've been kind of loud the night before because it is a Saturday night,
right.
and so it does happen. So talk to me about race morning and you're getting up in your Airbnb
Yep.
and what time you getting up and what are you doing?
I usually get up at 4, and I start my nutrition plan right away. I get up at 4:30 most days when I'm working, so that's not a problem for me. So I start drinking. I use Tailwind Endurance formula. So I start with a bottle of that right away. I eat my breakfast, which is usually 2 Uncrustables and a banana.
Hmm.
So I'll start getting ready for the day, filling up my bottles for the bike, eat breakfast, grab some coffee, and then load up the car. And usually I try to be in the car by 4:45,
Oh,
so I can be down by. Yeah, I'm an early bird. I don't like to be cutting it close. So I can be down by the course by like 5 or 5:15.
well, all right, nice. I mean, in all fairness, if I could, I mean, that's one of the reasons I love staying downtown because of the
Yeah,
simple ease of the transition situation. Everything's there, whatever. I could get up at 6 and just kind of stroll down there and get in the water
absolutely.
if I wanted. But of course, nobody lets me. Um, and it should be noted that you were third last year on the podium, second,
I
first,
was third in my age group,
third in the age group,
10th overall.
10th overall.
hmm
Well, there you go. So now we've got some good info coming from somebody who's been there.
Yeah, it was a great day.
Yeah, I remember seeing you, of course. You were coming in, and I was struggling out somewhere in the middle of my second loop.
Yeah,
You gave me some great words of encouragement. Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
And you looked fantastic. Actually, you're really close to finishing, so you didn't look as good as you look now. How's that?
Well, yeah, I would hope not.
All right, so you're down there at 6 or 5 a.m. into the
5:15ish.
transition area. It's 5:15.
Yeah.
And what's going through your head? How you handling that? You checking your bag, you're loading the bike, doing all that stuff. Recheck
Yeah, so
bags, putting stuff
oh
in.
yeah, yeah. I'll go into the bike area, make sure my nutrition is where I want it to be. Everything's, filled up, topped off. Check my tires one more time. Usually I run through all my gearing one more time just to make sure. I once came into transition and my electronic shifting wasn't working because
Mhm.
something came disconnected. So I like to do that, make sure everything's good to go. And then I'll go inside the terrace and, check my bags one more time, make sure that everything I need is in there for T1 and T2.
Mhm.
And then it's just kind of waiting around, which is, kind of a long, boring morning. But I pop my earbuds in and listen to some music, or find some teammates, talk to people, and just try to stay out of my head as much as possible, if that
Mhm.
is possible. And I stay inside usually as long as possible, just because I don't like to be, if it's cold or the year it was raining all day, I stayed as dry um, as long as possible. And then I'll head down to transition maybe 30 minutes before the swim, 20 minutes before the swim start.
Mhm. Yeah, we just talked about this on the podcast. It's supposed to be pretty chilly that morning,
Yeah.
the way it looks right now. So you're going down there and then, finding a spot to put on your wetsuit at that point, or are you putting it on before you walk down
Uh,
there?
yeah, I'll put it on up to my hips inside, and then I'll walk down. And once I'm down in the corral, then I'll put the rest of it on. Unless it's really cold, I would suggest putting it, you know, on inside and then going out if it's going to be really chilly.
Mhm.
That could be to your advantage.
Yeah. Well, we had just talked about, even though that would be a good timing, maybe still not coming out of your hotel with it on type deal.
No.
'Cause,
No.
yeah, that's a little stressful. I don't think I've mentioned this in the other cast, but, just so people know, at the top of the finish line, right by the Starbucks is where the special needs bags go, so bike and run go right there, so bring those over first and then go down to the helix or the terrace and sit inside and relax against the wall and, do whatever, check your bags and stuff. But that's always step one for me, is just to walk out of the hotel, walk over to special needs, drop the bags, and then get
Yep.
those out of your hair
Yep.
and do what you're saying. So you get down to I'm curious, where did you start last year? And did you get down there early and get right on?
hmm
Yeah, okay. I figured.
Yeah, I'm like a 1:15 swimmer, so I just get in. Like I get in line and get in as soon as possible. And if a couple people pass me along the way, that's no problem for me. I like to get in and get going though as soon as possible because I get a little anxious otherwise waiting around.
Yeah, do you get up in the front of the corral then? I mean, because in other words, you get up there before that mob hits, because I have to get
Yes.
through some of the crowd sometimes, and I'll just kind of go up until I'm tired of pushing, asking people to go through them.
Yeah.
I'll just stay there, but
As
try.
soon as I start seeing the corral fill up, then I get in and get up to the, front-ish and hang out there. And
Mhm.
that usually works out pretty well.
Yeah, and how long do you think typically you're gonna be standing there?
15 minutes, 20 minutes maybe. Kind
Um,
of depends on, the vibe of the crowd. Sometimes people are getting in line like way too early and they're standing there forever. So I kind of wait until it's about half full and then I start getting in there and maneuvering my way up.
mhm. You do it with the mass start back in the day?
I did.
Yeah. See,
That
that was
was
cool. I'd go down there, get ready, and then you just get in the water and tread water for 5
yeah,
minutes. It's beautiful. It's a
it
great
is
warm up.
beautiful. I agree. We should bring it back.
I agree. Everybody's saying that. I say it took a little bit of the luster off the race for a lot of the spectators for sure.
Oh, for
And
sure. That
a
was
lot,
such a spectacle. It was
yeah,
amazing
like,
to
oh,
watch
this
that.
isn't the same. I'm not going to watch that anymore. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So you're staying there 15 minutes. And now what are you thinking? You're going through your head, you're just breathing, you're not trying to talk to a lot of people, or are you? Getting out.
It depends on who I find. Last year I was hanging out with a couple teammates and, light chatter, but nothing too intense. I usually take a water bottle of just water down with me when I'm done with my nutrition for the morning. And then I'll take a gel about 10 minutes before I plan to get in the water. So I'm thinking about that, making sure my goggles are ready to go, and just kind of trying to enjoy the morning and not worry so much about the swim because, once you're in the water, there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to swim and you're going to get out eventually. And it's going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So You just
So,
kind of gotta relax.
so that brings up that you said around 115
Mhm.
total time. So, do you break up the swim? I mean, how do you strategically handle your swim, or is there just like you just swim?
I just swim. I try to stay as calm and relaxed as possible. In the past, I've been known to overswim, and I'll just burn my biscuits way too early. So I try to get out of the water feeling as fresh as possible. That's always my goal because the bike, is long and hilly, and my strength is the run. So I have to make it to the run feeling, good. And I'm
Yeah,
not about to blow it in the water.
yeah. No,
So
I agree. I mean, that there's one. Sometimes you can force a a little bit of a effort on the bike, or like you're like the run. So I'm sure you do that a little bit in the run somewhere. You got to kind of get your run going so you can kind of you feel comfortable with that. I don't feel that in the swim. Like I have to let that come to me, and it may
mhm.
not happen until the final stretch.
Yeah,
Feel like
yeah,
you're really warm and you're comfortable with everything, and you can go after it just a little bit, maybe just a little bit harder, a little more effort, and know your
absolutely.
breathing's under control and that sort of thing. So I get
Exactly.
so all right, you're coming around. Are you the type that kicks when you get trying to get to the end, or you just to get your blood going a little bit?
Yeah, like 500 yards or so out, I'll start to kick a little bit more to get my legs moving because you can feel kind of wonky coming out of the water when you haven't been using your legs very much. So I try to pick it up a little bit, but not too much before that. I try to save them for as long as possible.
Right. Right. So you're getting out of the water, you getting wetsuit strippers
Oh yeah, yep.
up.
I take it down to my hips. I always wear sleeveless wetsuits. That's just my preference. I have to feel the water on my arms, otherwise I have no idea what I'm doing. So I'll take it down to my hips, and then I try to run to the end of the line for the wetsuit strippers because there's usually less people down there. Let them do the work for me. They're more efficient at it than I am, anyways. And then cruise on up the helix and make it into transition.
Mm-hmm. Cruise, as in chill.
Like a light jog. I'm by no means sprinting up the helix, but I'm looking for teammates, giving high fives, trying to enjoy that moment. Um, you can do a little bit of damage on the way up the helix if you're really moving. So I try to just take my time and make sure I'm not, stepping on anything or running into anybody and making it
Yeah,
there in one piece.
it's a good point. It is probably the most energized moment of the whole day
Oh,
before
for
the
sure.
finish line, and so you do have to be careful. All right, so then you go in, you get your stuff, change into your bike gear.
Hmm.
Now it is going to be a little chilly. We just talked about this. How would you be dressing this day?
Yeah, I think that I would probably go with the plastic grocery bag inside my kit. And I would probably go arm warmers and maybe gloves. And I would consider putting socks on. I would take the time to dry my feet off and put socks on. But anything else, I don't think I would put on anything else over my kit this year. It's going to be sunny, you're going to warm up pretty quick out there. So I think if you can just do a couple things to stay a little warmer the first 20 or so miles, you should be okay by then.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. That's exactly where I am. I think you definitely want to try and be warm. The bags are going to be definitely in my repertoire, the arm warmers, and I'm thinking about socks too. I normally don't wear socks, but
I don't either. And because it's going to be dry, I think that socks would be a good idea because they're not going to get wet. So you may as well keep your feet warm.
yeah, well, 2022, I wore socks. Of course, I wore like plastic bags over. They got soaked, but I think it still kept me warm,
Yeah,
even though they were wet. It was a weird day, but
it
um,
was a good day.
so yeah, then you're coming out. How you handling the stick? Because that's always the question, right? You feel great. You usually have a
Yeah.
wind behind you going out that way. You're,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're putting the hammer down.
I no,
Are
I'm
you
not.
okay?
I try not to. I'm trying to get my bearings really because people come flying out of there and they do some dumb stuff. So really I'm just trying to pay attention to who's around me, making sure, I'm looking at the road, there's nothing, getting in my way, and just kind of trying to ease into it. you have 2 loops of a lot of climbing, and then you got to do the stick on the way back. So I think if you can just really calm down a little bit on the stick and really chill out your first loop, if you can get into your second loop feeling good, that's a really good sign.
Yeah, it's probably pretty rare too. You
Yeah.
could feel good coming through Verona on that first loop, and then by the time you get back into those hills on whatever Valley Road or whatever, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
it starts hitting you, starts
Yeah.
chipping away. So, okay, so you're telling me you're basically, cruising out there.
Yeah. I changed
I start eating right away, or what are you doing?
That depends. So sometimes I take in a lot of water when I swim. So sometimes I come out with kind of a full stomach. If that doesn't happen, which is rare, then I'll take a gel in T1 and try to get started on my nutrition. And then I usually take the first 10 or 15 minutes to just start riding, get moving, and then I'll start, with my nutrition plan after that. Last year, I consumed way too much water during the swim. I don't know why that happened because it wasn't even rough out there. Um, but it took me until like mile 20 to start my nutrition plan last year. And it worked out okay, but that's not usually how I like to do things.
Okay.
So it kind of depends. If you come out feeling full of water, I would wait until your stomach settles down a little bit because you can get yourself into a little bit of trouble there.
Yeah. Yeah, just let it work out. All right, you're going to kind of keep it under control for that first loop, and then second loop, are you making any decisions, or are you just letting it, kind of like I was talking about with the swim, you just sort of letting your body dictate what's going on?
Yeah, I ride with power usually, and try to just at least pay attention to it. It certainly isn't going to dictate what I'm going to do on the second loop, but it's something to be mindful of. So if I can stay in my power range on the first loop and I come through feeling pretty good on the second loop, I usually wait until after Mount Horeb to kind of start like, okay, I'm feeling good. I'm going to move a little bit here. But coming back on Whalen and then you have the stick, it's a soul crusher. So I really try to wait until then to make a move. Because if I can come through the second loop and do the 3 sisters and feel good after that, or at least like okay, you can hammer it home and still set yourself up for a really good marathon.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I mean, you're talking about Mount Horeb. That's about what, 12 or 13 miles into the second loop, and it's in my mind, the worst section. Frankly, you got Valley Road and Messerschmitt, and then you kind of got that climb into Mount Horeb. It's not a real fast section. It's kind of a grinder.
It's not. It's actually my least favorite. I think that's what you said as well of the course. It's hot. There's no shade out there. There's not really any spectators. So I usually wait until after that section to reevaluate where I'm at in the bike and see, how my body's feeling.
Yeah. Is that really after that point when you hit that roundabout or whatever, that's when the fun starts out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, going into Mount Horeb, a lot of times you're into the wind, it seems like out there too. So, it's definitely a tester of patience, if nothing else, because it's a false flats. There's a lot of climbing, the whole thing, it just is tough. So then you get through that and then you're trying to save it for the stick, which is, I think, what probably everybody should do, because you're not done when you get back into Verona and go past all those people. It's not over.
You think it's over, but it's not even close to being over.
I know. Yeah, you turn the corner to leave Verona, and then you see that hill, and you're like, "Where the hell?" Like, you don't remember it going out.
Yeah.
I mean,
yep.
And then the wind's in your face usually there. So, anyway, that's a good idea. So you're coming back around. You're coming out of the little path, whatever, coming out of the park, and then you see the helix, and you're like,
yeah.
Okay, now, I assume before then you're starting to think about the run, though.
Yeah, I usually on the stick on the way back in, I'm trying to put in, a little bit more nutrition. If I can handle an extra gel or something like that, I'll try to do it to kind of give myself a little bit of a buffer on the run. I use my nutrition on most of my training long runs and stuff, so I'm pretty good about it, but sometimes your stomach can do weird things while you're running. So I try to give myself a little bit of a buffer if I can, and eat a little extra, drink a little extra on the stick. And then, once you see the helix, you can kind of relax a little bit and get ready to put your running shoes on.
Yep. And then you put your running shoes on and you come out, and it's another one of those moments where there's a lot of people cheering you on, and you're going to be going, a lot faster maybe than you want at certain points. So how do you rein it in, or I mean, I assume you do. You're trying to pull back a little bit right there. Well,
yeah.
I mean, you might not feel great either. That's usually what holds me back. It's like,
it kind of depends. Yeah, I've come out of transition, T2 feeling really good, and I've come out of transition, feeling bad. So it just kind of depends. If you are lucky enough to, feel your run legs right away and you're feeling spunky, I try to, just kind of take it in. There's a little hill there too, which, helps to slow you down a little bit. But I try to be mindful of, my heart rate coming out of T2 because it's going to be high and you're going to be amped up. And so just, take a big deep breath and relax, at least for the first 5K. That's what I tell myself. And then if I'm feeling good at, the 3 mile mark, I'm like, okay, it's time to start running.
Okay. And speaking of first 5K, that's about where it looks like the new section of the run course comes into play.
Yeah.
Now, I'm trying to imagine you come out of Camp Randall, you go down that street, and then you kind of go down that hill still, or you turn before that? I can't.
No, I believe you go down the hill, and then it's right after the hill that you turn into, it's like a residential area, and you're running along all the side streets.
Okay. So it's, in other words, we used to go down from Camp Randall to the stop sign there and turn left to go
Correct.
up is that still part of it? Or
I think you turn before that. I think Breeze Terrace is before that, and then you're in all those little side streets where you're turning a lot. And there's a lot of little hills back there. A lot of little pinchers. So I think that the people are saying it'll be equivalent to running Observatory Hill, but maybe a little bit faster because you're not having that huge hill to climb up.
Yeah, it'll be right at the end of the run then, because you come back the same way, I guess.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to do it again.
So then we go into the like where the practice fields are and all that business, somehow a different way, evidently, not past that 7-Eleven type deal.
No, you won't go past that way. I think you come out in that little neighborhood and somehow end up back there.
Okay. Thank you for the clear direction.
Yeah, I'm terrible with directions.
Same here. So, all right. But anyway, when you go into the soccer field area, we normally would used to go right, but it looks like now they're taking us to the out and back first.
Yeah.
Is that what you see too?
Yeah. So you're going to go out on the bike path and then turn around and come back again.
Right. So, which is kind of cool. And I kind of like that because I hate that part at the end. It's like deep into nowhere, and then you come back. So
there's nobody out there. Yeah.
And then when you come back and you do the bike path all the way and you do up and down State Street, now when you get back onto the gravel, you only have like 4 miles versus 6, I think, to finish that
correct
loop or finish the race. So that's a good thing, maybe.
Yeah.
Psychologically, although you have to go through that windy neighborhood with the pinchers.
Yeah, but you've already done it once, so you know what to expect.
Yeah. Okay. And then you're home free, right?
Yeah. After that, I mean, it's just up State Street and.
All right, well, let's talk about it because you get through the first loop. I assume you're kind of keeping it under control a little bit through the end of the first loop. Or
yeah, I mean,
you start settling your stride in about 4 miles, you think, or 3 or 4 miles?
Yeah, usually I'll find my run legs, within the first 5K if I'm having a good day, and I didn't overbike. So, I try to take in nutrition every 3-ish miles, gel. I do water or, whatever. I don't even know what they're using at the aid stations anymore. So I usually rely on gel. I use the gels that have some electrolytes in them, which I think is good. So I do water at the aid stations, ice, even if it's cool outside, I still try to carry ice in my hands for at least a little bit, to keep that core temperature down. And then, after the first 5K or 4 miles, I try to, start rolling through and hang on for dear life.
What do you do? Hit the gel about every 30 minutes or something like that?
Yeah, every 3-ish miles. So I go by miles. I don't usually go by time.
Okay.
Unless I'm, I've slowed down quite a bit. So usually about every 24 or 25 minutes, I'll be taking a gel, as long as my stomach can handle it.
Mm-hmm. And then water, not necessarily Gatorade or anything like that?
It depends on, how hot it is or how much electrolytes I've had. The gel that I use has anywhere between 200 and 230 milligrams of sodium. So if I'm doing at least 2 or 3 of those every hour 15, I'm still getting in quite a bit of sodiums, and that usually works well for me.
Okay. All right. And then second loop is just about hanging on and
Yeah, I mean, if you can make it to mile 16 and feel pretty good, I think you've executed a pretty good marathon. Usually for me, the wheels start to fall off between 16 and 18 miles. But then, you just know that you have, 8 or 6 miles left and you're almost done. So you're going to hang on and try to slow down as little as possible.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I always say, that's like, there's a lot of pain in that. And I don't want to say it's phantom pain, but it's not injury pain necessarily. So it's really about, like for me, sometimes I just go into counting steps or just getting my mind off of whatever, just to try to keep it going.
Yeah, usually somewhere after halfway, I will start, depending on the day, of course, walking through the aid stations. So for me, it's just get to the next aid station, walk through, get what you need, start running again. And then it's just get to the next aid station. And that's kind of how I gauge or, keep moving forward. Sometimes it's every 5 minutes, I'll reevaluate how I'm feeling or figuring out what I'm going to do next. For me, what I try to focus on most of the time is trying to pass people, especially on that second loop, because, there's such a wide variety of athlete levels out there that there's a chicken up here. I'm really sorry.
Chicken.
Yeah. No, she's a special guest.
Nice. Bring some eggs.
Yeah, we have some chickens. But if you can just focus on passing, the next person in front of you, that makes the time go by. And it's a great, mood booster if you're passing people. So that's also something that I focus on doing, especially that second loop, trying to run as many people down as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was looking at that reconfiguration of that run course, and it looks like my first thought was, well, I wonder if they're doing this to get rid of some aid stations, or at least like save a few aid stations, because it looks like you remember, I mean, when I started this business, and probably you too, there was like just an aid station every mile, and now it's kind of getting a little bit quirky with that mile. It's not just as like locked in anymore. So, a lot of them are double aid stations. It looks.
Yeah,
it seems
one
like
on each side of the road.
Rather than, because they used to have one when you cut off to Observatory, there was one just sitting there, and I noticed that obviously is gone. So now they're probably using the boathouse for both, maybe, or something. I can't figure it out, but
yeah, I thought that too. I wasn't sure if that was the reason behind it. There's a lot of rumors flying around about why they're doing it, but I think there'll still be an aid station about every mile. But that's one of the great things about Wisconsin was how many volunteers and aid stations they had.
I
Because
know.
I've done Arizona and Iowa when they had the full, and they do not have near as many as Wisconsin.
Well, I wonder. There's a lot of questions, right? I mean, it sounded to me like that was the first thought I had, was that maybe they're thin on volunteers, and which would make sense now because they got a 70.3, and people are like, well, I'm not doing both days, or I used to love doing the thing, and now here we got 2 different races and we need all these volunteers, plus the registration's a little bit lower than it used to be and all that kind of stuff. So who knows? But I guess I just pointed that out because I don't think we can count aid stations every mile like clockwork anymore, because there's variance,
That's true. Mm-hmm.
So, it might be a good thing. It gets you to the next aid station. You just ran a mile and a third versus, a mile. So, but yeah, that's a good way to do it. I mean, I think the whole race day, if you can, is break it up into smaller chunks, whether it's buoy to buoy and 5 mile on the course, on the bike course, and then, every aid station. I think that helps take the enormity away. It's just like, I got to get to this next thing. It's like literally an extension of being in the moment and step by step kind of thing. So
yeah,
I think it's a good plan.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then you come around the Capitol and you're finishing, and, what are you doing? Are you doing anything crazy? Or are you just
No, I don't do anything crazy. Because by that time, if you've you're doing an Ironman, so you should be hurting pretty good by the time you're coming up to State Street again. For me, that's my most favorite part of the race, though, is the State Street section, and then when you come around the state, the Capitol, the final time. So for me, that's like the finish line. So I try to like really be present in that moment. And, usually I have some family or friends out there. I always stop to make sure that I say thank you for coming and hug them, even if it, takes me an extra 30 seconds, whatever.
Agree.
But I, try to really like
corner to come up state even at the bottom of it. That's like pretty special right there.
It's fantastic. I mean, to me, there's nothing like it. The finish line is great, but State Street, I think, is my favorite part for sure. So I would try to tell people, and, I told my athletes to really pay attention to that section of the race and kind of just think about your day and all the training you've done and your journey to get to where you are. You're going to finish. So just take a minute to reflect on, what you've just accomplished, because it's really something amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that almost gave me tears just thinking about it right there. But I mean, it is an emotional moment. It can be,
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought back to the rainy year when I came up around the cap. There was nobody around. That was the worst part about that day, was that there was no spectators. And I remember coming up around that corner by where Old Fashioned Restaurant is. It's the second to last corner or whatever. And there was a guy out there in the middle of the street. I was the only one around, and he was on his bike. And I just sat there and had a couple Oreos with him.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I mean, it pushed me over the 14-minute mark, 14-hour mark that year. But yeah, I mean, it's just so wild to come up around there. I mean, obviously it gives you another jolt in your step somehow, even coming up. Yeah. It's like, so you were probably just floating on air down that carpet. But all right, well, any other thoughts? That was really good. I appreciate your insight for sure.
No, I mean, just, it's 1 mile at a time. Don't try to think about what's coming in, 20 miles on the bike, because you have no idea. So just worry about what's happening right now, and, like you said, break it up into smaller chunks, and eventually you're going to chip away and get to the finish line no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's what I always say. You can't finish the race in the swim. So slow her down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll try to take those words of advice, and, I think that's why we say it over and over, is because it's so hard to do,
Oh, I don't always do it either. I'm thinking, 20 minutes down the road, but, you learn something every time you do it. So
I agree. Well, thanks again. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I will see you Friday or something, probably.
Friday. I'll see you Friday.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Erin.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.